All right, welcome. Welcome to the G Math Academy. So, for some of you, this may be the first video you see with Mr. G. Some things to notice about is, one is go at your own pace. You know, it's okay to rewind and go back if you need to. If you ever have any questions, you just raise your hand and Mr. G will help you. Make sure to write down the notes. And always do the math with Mr. G, okay? Don't just watch me do this and do that. I want you to copy and do the math as I'm doing it. And always enjoy. Okay, so last class we talked about the zero product property, right? And what did this property say? That if I have A, B equals 0, right? Three things could happen. Option 1, A is equal to 0. Option 2, B is equal to 0, or option 3, both A is equal to 0 and B is equal to 0. Okay? Here, what I want us to do is, using the zero product property, we're allowed to set these equations to 0 and solve for M. My question for you is, what value of M makes the whole thing 0, right? That's what we need to find. And here, the techniques that we've been learning are factoring. Factoring is a nice technique to try and figure out what value of M will make the whole thing 0. So here, if you look at this, doesn't this look very familiar? And, you know, what do? You say, what two numbers when you multiply give you 2, but when you add give you 3? And what will that be? This will be what? I want you to pause the video and think about it. What two numbers when you multiply give you 2, but when you add give you 3? And it should be 2 and 1, right? Because 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. And notice that this is equal to this. But now here, what technique are we allowed to use? We're allowed to use zero product property. Okay, from here, the technique you're going to use is you draw this line over here, and now you can say what? That M plus 2 is equal to 0, right? You could say this is equal to 0, or you can say M plus 1 is equal to 0. And now here, how do you go from this step to the next step? You want to isolate the variable. How do you get the variable by itself? Here, what do? You do minus 2, and then M is equal to minus 2. Right. What about this one? Here you do minus 1. So then, oh yeah, by the way, this cancels, right? The positive 2, minus 2. And here, what is 0 minus 2? It's minus 2. Here you do minus 1 on this side of the equation, and here this is 0 minus 1 is minus 1. And this is M is equal to this. Okay? And that's it. What you have to do is you got to practice your factoring techniques and use the zero product property at the same time. Okay? And now here, these questions, by the way, are hold on, let me pause the video real quick. The same thing. Like here, if you look at it, this is question 1. We just did question 1 together. What I'm going to do with you is I'm going to do the first question, the third, the fifth, and the seventh. And then the rest you're on your own. I know you can do it. You just have to take your time. Okay, so let's look at question 3. Right? Let's look at this question over here. This 2p squared minus 8p minus 24. So if I say here, how do we do this? And I want you to think about it. How can you go forward? What's the first move? Okay, here, can you say what two numbers when you multiply give you 24 and add give you 8? No. What is here? There is a 2 over here for the coefficient. Remember, if you have ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, you can only factor this, right? Like this move only when this is by itself, right? But what's here? There's a 2, so you can't do it. But what's a good technique that you can do to maybe get this by itself? And here you can factor the GCF. Let's see what happens. What happens if you factor the GCF? Here, what is the GCF of 2, 8, and 24? The GCF is 2. So then what do you do with this 2? You divide this by 2, you divide this by 2, and you divide this by 2. Right? And then this is 2 times. This is what? This becomes p squared. Actually, you know what? Pause the video and do it by yourself. Okay? Then what? This is minus 4p, and this is minus 12, equals 0. Okay. Now here, can you continue forward once you have this? Can you say what two numbers when you multiply give you negative 12, but when you add give you negative 4? Yes. Yes, you can use this technique now, because here the p is solo, it's by itself. I'm sorry, the p squared. So here, what will it be? I want you to pause the video and try and think about it. What two numbers when you multiply give you negative 12, but when you add give you negative 4? Take your time. Right? And if you're here to see the video and the solution, it should be p minus 6 and p plus 2. Because negative 6 times positive 2 is negative 12. You see, look, negative 6 times 2 is negative 12. And negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4. Okay? So this is the right combination. So from here, what can we do? We can use which property? We can now use the zero product property, right? We can say that this is equal to 0 and this is equal to 0. So then this is it. You just have p minus 6 equals 0, p plus 2 equals 0. And now what? What do you do? You get p solo, right? So you do plus 6, right? Because the opposite of subtraction is addition. Here you do minus 2, minus 2. So then this becomes what? This cancels, so p is equal to 6. And what about here? This is minus 2, p is equal to minus 2. Okie dokie. By yourself, and hint, right? Try and solve this. Hint, factor out GCF. Then factor again. Okay? This is my hint for you. Alright? And what I'm going to do is, alright, so pause the video and try and do this by yourself. Factor out the GCF and then factor again. And then what's the last move? Use zero product property. Okie dokie. So now if you want to see the solution, just because of time, Mr. G is running a little late. I'm going to speed this video up a little bit. Here, the GCF is 6. So what do I do with that 6? I divide this by 6. I divide this by 6. I divide this by 6. Right? And here I have 6 times 6n squared plus 7n plus 6. Oh, whoops. Whoa, pause. That is wrong. It'll be 6 times n squared plus 7n plus 6. Right? And then this is equal to 0. Okay? Technically, I'm sorry, you're dividing both sides by 6. So, but what is 0 divided by 6? It's just 0. And now here, you factor again. So this is 6 times, what two numbers when you multiply give you 6, but when you add give you 7, it should be n plus 6, n plus 1 equals 0. Right? Because 6 times 1 is 6, 6 plus 1 is 7. And then what do? Zero product property. N plus 6 is equal to 0, n plus 1 is equal to 0, minus 6, n is equal to minus 6, minus 1, n is equal to minus 1. Easy peasy. All right? Last one. Now, this one, let's take a look at this. It says x squared plus 15x plus 49 is equal to minus 7. Wait a minute. Oh, no. You see, in all your examples, you have equals 0, equals 0 equals 0. Here we have is equal to minus 7. So what do we do? What do we do? Okay. Strategy you want is, whenever you have something like this, 0 on one side is nice. Okay? So what we're going to do is, the technique you want to do is, you see, look, we don't have 0. But can we manipulate the equation to get 0 on this side? And yes, you can, because let's say if you do plus 7, right? What is the opposite of this negative 7? It's plus 7. Notice that this becomes what? This becomes x squared plus 15x. What is 49 plus 7? That's 56. And now here, what is negative 7 plus 7? That's 0. And now look at this. We changed this to look like this. And why do we want to have 0 on one side? So we can use this zero product property to be able to solve the equations. Okay? And then here, this is what? Easy peasy. You just factor. What two numbers when you multiply give you 56, but when you add give you 15? Take your time. Try and pause the video. Figure it out yourself. And it should be what? X plus 8, x plus 7. Right? And then what do? You just say x plus 8 equals 0, x plus 7 equals 0, minus 8, minus 8, minus 7, minus 7, boom, boom, x equals minus 8, x equals minus 7. And the crazy thing is, if you plug in minus 8, take a calculator right now. If you plug in with your calculator, right? Let's say I have this calculator. You see this minus 8. If I plug it in here, I have to get what? I have to get minus 7, right? That's what it's saying. That's what we solved. Let's see. What is, if I do this, negative 8 squared, where's squared? Squared, and let me zoom in with this a little bit. Look over here on this side. You see, negative 8 squared plus 15 times negative 8, right? I'm just following this, plus 49, it has to equal what? Look, it's minus 7. What I want you to do is do the same thing, but use minus 7, and it'll equal that. And that's what you're solving for here. And the same thing for the other questions too, that if I plug in minus 2, like look at the first question, if I plug in minus 2 into this, I have to get what? 0. If I plug in minus 1 into this, I have to get what? 0. Okie dokie. What I want you to try and do is do the other questions by yourself. All right? I'll see you.